Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. You know, Jerry, I have noticed in the past year or so, especially, that a lot of kids are going off to college and they're excited, but then come October, they are not liking it and coming home. And I feel like they need to give it more of a chance. And I don't know if after COVID, there has been a little bit more of a shift in that, a little bit more of a trend. I know I'm seeing it here where I live, but the kids need to stick it out a little bit more, I think. And they need support to do that. Some colleges have the support, but sometimes they don't take advantage of it or they don't know where to go. So I think it's a little bit of a struggle. We're going to be talking about this today, aren't we?
We are. And I wanted to say that in Kansas, we started something that was like the student success rate after high school. And what we found is that so many students enroll, but by that second year, they're not there anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we're seeing that not as a success. And so really, we're having to rethink, how do we support students so that they can be successful? And not only that, but we want those first generation college students to have those supports as well, because it's a hard system to maneuver. So today, I am excited to hear what our guest, Bobby Treviño, has to say about what he is doing in his work to support students and help them from high school through the college experience. So, Bobby, welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. We're excited to hear about the boundaries you're breaking today.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you so much, Jamie, for having me.
You bet. Can you tell us just a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my title, I'm a managing director of college initiatives at Yes Prep. I have been at Yes Prep Public Schools going into my 12th year. But prior to being at Yes Prep, I actually worked on what's considered the other side of the desk in college admissions at my alma mater, Boston University. And I was there for 6 years in admissions. So it's been a really great journey for me to see both sides of the desk and really recruiting students to one university and really believing in the education that I received at Boston University. But then also realizing that that's not the place for everybody. Obviously, there's over 4,000 universities and colleges across the country, to really moving and coming over to this side of the desk and serving our high school students. But a little bit about myself also is I'm first generation to college. And so I think that really plays into a lot of the work that I do and kind of really provides the support and the passion that I have in the work that I do.
And I have a follow-up question for you. So where is Yes Prep and what is Yes Prep?
Good question. Let's start with that. So Yes Prep Public Schools is in Houston, Texas. We're only in Houston. We're one of the most diverse cities, in the country. And there is a lot of work to be done here in Houston to serve our students. So it's an open enrollment charter school district. It started back in 1998 with just one school. And now we've grown to 24 schools here in Houston. We serve pre-K through 12, and we have over 18,000 students across our district. And our mission is to empower all Houston students to succeed in college and pursue lives of opportunity and beyond. So that is what Yes Prep is, and that's what we do. That's what we serve.
So can I follow up with a couple more questions?
Please do.
So Yes Prep, are you all in person, or are you hybrid?
We're all in person. We're all in person. I mean, minus obviously the whole world shifting to online and hybrid the last 2 years or so, but glad that that's not permanent for us.
What makes Yes Prep different or from maybe other charter schools? What sets you apart?
So I think a big thing that sets Yes Prep apart is we have made a conscious decision to stay in Houston. Many charter schools across the country have expanded, beyond the city that maybe they're originated in. And I can understand why, right? There's a need in many different cities and many different places. And if you feel like something is working in one place, ideally it works somewhere else. But for us, expansion meant serving more and more Houston students. Again, we're the third or fourth largest city in the country, soon hopefully to be probably third with the growth here. And we know that there is a need in Houston. And so we have been for a long time just 6th through 12th. And just recently, right in the middle of COVID, we opened up our elementary schools. So we're now expanding our elementary programs, and ideally in the future, where all of our schools will be fully pre-K through 12. So I think that's something that makes Yes Prep unique, is just being here in Houston, and the expansion has been remaining here.
That's great. Your college initiatives program, that is a standout. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And you were primarily 6 through 12. Now you are pre-K through 12. But what does your college initiatives program do, and what are the different stages of it?
Yeah, so our college initiatives program, I think, is our bread and butter, where a lot of our families, when they enroll their student at Yes Prep, they enroll them with this vision of where their kid is going to go post Yes Prep, right? Yes, we're a safe and inclusive environment, and lots of relationships are built at Yes Prep, and we're small. And I think that is something that attracts our families for sure. But I think one of their biggest attractions is what happens after they graduate from Yes Prep. And so we want to make sure that we're meeting those expectations for our families, and the what they deserve, really. So I would say it comes down to about, I call them 5 pillars, and then I'm adding a bonus one that I'll explain in a second why. Advising, our seminar program, student opportunities, college partnerships, and then our alumni support. And the bonus one that isn't officially a pillar, but I very much believe that is ingrained in all 5 of those things, is family engagement. We cannot do this work without engaging our families and ensuring that they have the support that they need. But those are the pillars. I'm happy to go into any one of those with more detail.
Yeah, I'm curious. So what is the seminar program? That's the second pillar?
Yep.
So
yeah, so our seminar,
and then the seminar. Okay.
Yeah, so our seminar program, our seminar, it's a class where it's built into their schedule. They get a credit, and essentially, it's an opportunity for our students to just discover themselves a bit more, right? They learn about their personality. They learn about what career choices they're interested in. They learn about the process to apply to college. They learn about colleges, period. They learn about other post-secondary pathways as well, because the reality is that some of our students end up choosing not to go to college at the end. But our belief is that all students should have access, right? All students should have access to learn about what college is all about, so that they can make the choice at the end. And part of that is learning about other post-secondary opportunities, so that they understand the lay of the land, right? Is military the right fit for me? Is attending a trade school a better fit for me? Or really, is college the best fit for me? I just didn't know that this was the process I needed to take. So therefore, maybe I was scared, or my family thought it wasn't accessible to me, but maybe now it is, because I know more information about it. So we give them free SAT prep in our seminar classes, walk them through the entire college process, financial aid process, up until the end, where they decide what they're going to do after high school. So I see that as such a pivotal pillar of our program, because we see them on a daily basis, essentially. Those minutes that we have with students is priceless. We don't have to constantly be going and pulling them out of class or working them outside of school. We literally have them a part of our class day in and day out.
That's so important because a lot of schools will certainly touch on all of that. But it's kind of piecemeal and maybe like a week or, a couple of times out of the year. But to have a course dedicated just to that, I think is so important. And I think one of the most important aspects of that is allowing students to explore their interests, because a lot of times they don't know. And they, often it makes sense that they don't know. They're still young, but just to get them in tune with what their strengths are, what their interests are, really helps them form some type of plan for after college. I mean, after high school, whether it's college or trade school or, going right into a job, but just preparing them for that. How many years is that course? And when is that course?
So it starts in junior year. They start in junior year and go all the way through senior year as well. And one thing I wanted to add, Jamie, not only is it important because they're young, and when you're young, you think you know a lot, right? But you actually don't know a lot. But for our students that are predominantly first generation, about 90% of our students are first generation to college. They really just don't know this process, right?
90%, really? Wow.
90%, yeah. I mean, I think about myself, and I now have a college degree, and I'm going to be able to teach my own kids what the process is like and why college is important, XYZ things, right? But I didn't have that when I went home. And so that's what we want to provide for our students is giving them that information, and our families too, because research shows our families are the top influencer in students' decisions at the end. And so if we don't engage them, doesn't matter what we say in school, parents are going to have the ultimate say. And so it's important that we also provide them the information so that, again, they can make, the most informed decisions.
How do you do that for parents?
Oof.
It's hard, right? Because
it is hard.
They're busy, they're working.
Absolutely.
So what is the way that you break that challenge?
A variety of ways. I think first is ensuring that our staff and all of my counselors and all of our directors of college counseling on our campuses have the mindset, first, the correct mindset, right? You have to believe that our families are pivotal in this process. Because then the hard part happens is paving the path for our families, whether it be through family nights, whether it be through, which we do, we have a scope and sequence that we request all of our campuses to follow. Here is a senior family night at this time, and these are some of the suggested topics. Here's a junior parent night, et cetera, et cetera. Twice in 1 year, our counselors are expected to also bring in their families for a one-on-one advising appointment with their students. Those are my absolute favorite. When I was on a campus, which I should have mentioned, I was on a campus for almost 10 years as a director of college counseling. And one of my favorite meetings was the first meeting with one of my junior advisees. I would have half of the time with the parents by themselves, and I would just talk to them like normal human beings and ask them, tell me what you do, tell me, what it is that you do with your family at home. What is your kid like at home? What is it going to be like for you when your kid goes to college? Just kind of really have that human connection, because once you can connect with the families and they believe in you as a person and believe in you in the program, then it's much easier as you go through the process. So I would say those are the best ways that we engage our families. But obviously knowing that not all families come, although we try to do 100%, but we definitely put out different publications. We've put out a couple of different guides actually on our website to help our families have conversations at home. Because again, they can have all the conversations with us, but they need to continue those at home. So really helping our families know what to talk about, whether it be GPA, whether it be financial aid, whether it be about the college application process, creating some guides, conversation guides for them to use at home has been really helpful as well.
Right. Yeah. No, that is important. Coming full circle like that, I think and keeping that contact going. and being open. And I think that's probably the biggest trick, is just talking with them on a human level, so that they always feel comfortable when a question comes up, that they can come to you.
100%.
Yeah.
Asking them their fears. That's one of my favorite questions also. Like, what is your fear in your kid growing up and going to college? Because their fears are sometimes actually what keeps the kid from flying away. The amount of kids that have come to me and say, I want to leave Houston, but my mom won't let me. And kind of really exploring that with the parent and asking, what are your fears and why, has been really helpful. And now as a parent also, I think it has provided a different lens for me too, because I mean, I'm thinking about my own kids leaving is tough, but being able to empathize is really important.
It's funny, last night, my husband just said, we were just setting the table for dinner, and he's just said, I really miss the girls. Both of ours are in college. It's like, I really miss them. Like, there are certain moments that we realize, like, gosh, it's so different without them. I think when you get married and you have kids, you think like that's your life. You're going to have kids. And then now we realize there's this whole other stage, right, that we didn't really think about. We thought, oh yeah, that'll be like when we're older. But it's
imagine.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There is a process that parents have to go through as well. Yeah.
And I say to parents sometimes also, because predominantly most of our students are Black and Latino, right? And especially for our families who immigrated to the US, in Latino culture, there's a couple of different things. One is that at 18, you all of a sudden become an adult, which we know, like, child development, that's not actually accurate. But two, also that like, it's okay for your kids to stay home until you get married, right? And if that means 35 years old, you're good. You can stay with me. And so being really conscientious of those, cultural pieces is important, but also helping our families like understand that it's okay for them to go, and that you're still going to be their parents, just at a different stage of life. Right. They'll still be there for them, and they'll still actually probably call you more and say, what do I do when this happens? It's just not going to be them living in your house.
And it's so interesting too, because there's a sense of pride that you have when they're off on their own, whether it's college or doing something. So, even if it's hard to kind of let go and let them do their thing, or even if they're living at home and off doing their own job, there's a great sense of pride in that. And the relationship does change. Like you said, they might call you more, they might ask you questions more. You see them growing into adulthood. Although, like you said, they're 18, they're not adults, but they're learning, right? They're being more independent. They're taking on things on their own. And it's a wonderful feeling to see that happen. So, it is a different odd stage, but, at least parents can know that it's a good stage. It's a good stage. You've done your job well, right?
Yes. And valuing their culture is critical. Yes. I had a student that had a full ride to Columbia University. And I remember his grandmother telling me she didn't want him to go because she was afraid that he would lose his roots, his Kansas roots. And so I think we have to respect the culture that they're from and try to be that support net to help people understand that we're not trying to change your child or make them a different person, that your values are always with them. And
that's a great point. I think there's two things. One of the things that's the hardest, I think, in training our counselors is finding that healthy balance, because part of what I said earlier about fears is we don't want our families and students to live in their fears, and you want to make sure that you're valuing their whether it be cultural, family, religious, whatever values they bring to the table is leading with your values as well. So where's that middle point? And how do you get there? Because I've had families say, well, I feel like this counselor just wants me to do X, right? And they're not listening to me, or they're not valuing this, which is, yeah, immediate. When you do that, that family is no longer engaged, with you. And then on the flip side, I've had counselors say, well, the family wants this, and so therefore that's what I'm doing. And then upon asking more questions, it's like, oh, you just kind of like took it at face value, but you didn't realize that behind that is this fear or this other thing that you kind of need to uncover. And maybe the kid actually wants something different, and that's equally important to follow. But I think that's a great point, is leading with values and is really important in this process.
Yeah, I guess it's really challenging for the counselors, the advisors, to really make sure that everyone is seen, heard, and valued in that way, because there are, like you mentioned, different goals, different mindsets. So that's challenging to get everyone on the same page, and to do that for every family. That's a lot, but I think that's your core value of your school. So I think that's just wonderful.
Bobby, I have another question for you. I know that you started the pre-K through sixth grade, eighth grade program.
So it'll be pre-K through fifth in our elementary schools. Yep, that's going to be the new part. And then 6th through 12th has been what's been around for a long time.
Right. And I love that you're doing that, because I think so many times we start with the college prep and we only think about those last 2 years in high school, when really, if we would back it up to kindergarten and start seeing what are your interests, what are you interested in? So do you have that push in your elementary school to start thinking about what kind of problems you want to solve when you get older? What are your values, interests?
Yeah. As I guess age appropriate, right? As it can be, for sure. I think one of the reasons why we expanded into elementary is what we thought we could solve for in the 6th through 12th. We weren't seeing that solution. And what I mean by that is, we thought we can catch up students in the 7 years that they're with us in secondary. What we were seeing is that students were coming into our 6th grade, sometimes 3 to 4 grade levels behind in reading or math. And we pride ourselves in our middle school, in our 6th through 8th, we have what's called our intervention classes, where students, depending on their reading level, depending on their math level, then have additional intervention besides their grade level math and reading, so that ideally by the time they get to high school, they're caught up. But we've just started seeing that's, for some students, they come in so severely behind that was impossible. So at the end of the day, what's fundamental, right, for a student to really even envision themselves to go to college is, am I being successful academically? Do I like school? Is it fun, to be at school? And why do I want to do this, or what do I want to do in the future? So I think for us, in really thinking about expanding into elementary, those were some of the things that we wanted to ensure that we brought into our elementary schools, that students felt successful. Right. And so we have both bilingual classes, we have monolingual classes, so that, again, if a student comes in fully, in speaking Spanish at home and doesn't know English, that will be the opportunity to feel successful in school in their own home language, where, again, our classes bring a lot of joy and still bring in a lot of different cultural events throughout the schools. For every class, there is a piece that says, like, they're all Sparks, by the way. The mascot for all of our elementary schools are Sparks. And so it's Sparks to College, and it's a little like rocket that like is going, like, shooting off into the moon. And so really getting them to think that, having different career days as well, so that, again, they can envision themselves. And one of my new favorite traditions at our schools, who are now both secondary and elementary next to each other, is they're starting at the end of the school year, all of our seniors walking through the elementary
Oh,
schools.
yeah.
So that again, they see, in some cases they see their siblings, in some cases, they see a cousin and so forth. That's another great thing about Yes Prep. It's very
And then the
family
kids can
oriented.
see their teachers too. The graduates can see their teachers. We do that
100%.
too. It's so moving. It's wonderful.
And we have a lot of alumni also working at Yes Prep, because again, we've been around for so long. And so one of my favorite tidbits is one of my alumni from our Yes Prep Southeast campus. He is now a kindergarten teacher at our elementary school. And last year he had 5 of his classmates' kids in his class.
Oh my
So it's like the
gosh.
next Yes Prep generation, in elementary school, and just like the power of really the generational, change that happens is seen even within our schools and within our alumni. And that to me, I remember when I heard about that, I was like, that was one of my favorite moments.
So what I love so much is that when you talk about your alumni, you talk about the alumni as still part of your school. And most of the time, it's this isolated group. They've gone on, there's no real connection to, they'll see teachers, sometimes they'll come back and say hi, but you really stay connected with your alumni through college as much as possible. I think that's part of what makes the big difference here. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think back to my own high school experience, and I'm on Facebook on an alumni group, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. There isn't that connection, and from the get-go, when Yes Prep started, that was going to be a pillar that we wanted to focus on. And one of my goals, despite us now being over 10,000 alumni, is that does not change. Do we have to evolve? Yes. However, we want to ensure that our alumni are still engaged with Yes Prep. And a couple of things that I can share with you is, one, I'm really proud that our director of alumni support is actually a Yes Prep alum. So having that personal connection lead the program is super, super impactful. And we actually recently just released a survey to our alumni where it's about 2,500 alumni responded. So good, a little over 2,500, or a little over 25%. And that to me just showed that if I can get over 2,500 alumni to respond to a survey, there's something there. There's something really special that we've done when they were with us. And they know to expect. They know to expect that we will have events for them. They know to expect that their high schools will ask them to come back and speak to their students. My director of alumni support is looking to start a mentorship program where our older alumni are supporting our younger alumni and also supporting our high school students. Just finding unique ways to just help our students stay not only engaged with us, but by staying engaged with us, the hope is that will then help them continue to persist and graduate and then potentially find careers, right? Because again, our alumni now are my age. I mean, we're in 30s and so forth, and about to be in their 40s, and people now have successful careers that you can then start to create internships or find connections to find that first job out of college. And that's the hope, is that we continue to keep that family feel beyond just high school and into the alumni community.
So I'm assuming you have good percentages of students who will go to college, stay in college, or at least, find a great career.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, do we want it to be higher? Absolutely. We're not, this absent of kind of what goes around the world, especially after COVID, we experienced definitely a dip in our matriculation, at par with what other institutions we're seeing, but we're quickly recovering. We did see about a 10% drop that from what we normally see, but this year, crossing my fingers, once I get the data from our National Student Clearinghouse, is that we've rebounded and really turned that turn that around. But we are graduating our students at 3 times the higher than the national rate for low-income students. So that's really important, even though we continue to grow. From our last survey, I shared with you all that we shared a survey, and about from those 2,500, 75% of our students either were still persisting or had graduated from college. So that was a really great statistic for us to also see. Again, it was not all of our alumni in that survey, but 25% still was a pretty sizable amount for us to be able to extrapolate some data.
That's wonderful.
I live in a college town, and when we got our National Clearinghouse data, we thought, professors' kids, we're going to be sky high. No, we were shocked. And so your data is really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, there's room for growth, and we continue to strive for more and better. But I think I'm very proud for sure of the work that we're doing, and I think an area that we're also shifting a little bit more is that we want to continue to strive for stronger college data. And National Student Clearinghouse also doesn't track any other pathways. So we're starting to track exactly. Yeah. So we're starting to track a little bit more in-house as well. Because for our students who ultimately choose not to do that, it's important that our students don't feel that they're less than or that we're not supporting them. So if they chose a different pathway, we want to continue to also support them. And you know what? Sometimes they come back and say a year or two later, like, I actually do want to do that. One of my students who graduated in 2019 texted me literally last week asking me, can I put you down as a reference? Sure. For what? I really want to join the police academy. Great. The student decided to go straight to work, and a series of events happen, and all of a sudden he reaches back out and says, now I'm ready, and I think that happens more often than not. And the last thing I want is for a student to not feel like they can call us or connect with us, so we got to keep those lines of communication and open, and make sure that they know that we can still support them.
I think the mentorship program that that your team is going to be initiating is going to be super impactful. I think that's going to be helpful as well, to get that going. And I also wanted to know about the imposter syndrome that first generation students often feel when they go off to college. Do you encounter that a lot? And if so, how do you help students overcome that?
Yeah, that is real, and that will always be real, I think, for any first generation students or any student of color. As long as institutions continue to be predominantly white, our students will see that. And when I was on a campus, I leveraged my own experience, and I always tell my own quick story, which is literally, I remember in November of my freshman year, calling my mom, and I was sitting out in the hallway crying and saying, I made a mistake. I shouldn't be here. I don't fit in. I'm not doing as well as I thought I would. I don't have friends, et cetera, et cetera. And I love my mom dearly. And I thought she was going to tell me, all right, we'll come back. But instead she said, and I'll say it in Spanish because it gets the full effect. She said, te aguantas, which basically means like, tough it out. Like, you made a decision, you wanted to go there, and tough it out, because it's going to take time. It's going to take time for you to acclimate, et cetera, et cetera. And sure enough, second semester, I did much better and felt better and all that stuff. Right. So I think one of the ways that I prepared, or I think I would help our students prepare for that, and I encourage our counselors now to prepare for that, is one, leverage our own experiences. Many of our counselors actually are from first generation themselves. So it's okay for us to leverage that experience so that our students can see that, hey, you did it, I think I can do it too. So that's important. Two, building it into our seminar curriculum. So we do ensure that we have those types of conversations in our classes. We ensure that our counselors are talking about that and being real with our students in our advising appointments too, right? Like there's no need to sugarcoat things for our students and say, hey, it's going to be great. And, you're doing well in school, so you're going to do just great. No, hey, you actually have a 4.0 now, and you probably are still going to fail your first biology exam when you get to college. Why? Because it's so different. And you know what? You're probably going to struggle finding friends. Why? Because you've been at Yes Prep for 7 years. And so therefore, it's going to be hard to make friends, and they're going to look different than you. They're going to have more money than you potentially. So just having those real conversations, I think, goes a really, really long way. But at the end of the day, I do remember an alum coming in and telling me like, hey, I don't feel like we talked about imposter syndrome. I don't feel like we talked about this. So, well, actually, one, we did, I promise you, but you may not have been ready to accept it. And so sometimes you just have to experience it to realize, oh, this is what that is. I may not be as equipped, but hopefully we've given them a few nuggets or enough nuggets and enough ways to know how to troubleshoot and overcome those challenges so that they navigate it, and telling them, hey, we're here. Like if you still need us, we're here, even if it's just to vent or to cry, use us as well.
Bobby, that's what I love about your whole program. What I hear throughout it is relationships.
Yeah.
And very
Foundation.
intentional.
Yeah.
You're very intentional about building these relationships. And we hear people saying it's all about relationships, but I love the intention that you've put into this. Yeah. And I also feel like the seminar is almost a safety net for students and families. We know there's going to be some tripping and missteps, but we're here to pull you back up and lean on us. And I think that that's great. I was wondering, what is it that you would say to just your normal brick and mortar building that says we want to ensure that our students are successful in college? What would be a first step you would tell them to take?
I think the first just critical step, and I said this a little bit in thinking about family engagement with our counselors, but I think the first thing that needs to happen is aligning that on this mindset that every student can, right? Whether they do go to college or not, or don't want to or not, you have to start with the belief that every student can. Because the minute that an adult, even just one, says, oh, they're not smart enough, oh, they don't have the resources for it, oh, their family isn't involved because they don't care, so therefore XYZ things, they can't. It permeates the environment, and that I think is negatively impacts our students, right? A student reads into an adult very easily. They're very perceptive, even though they're young and change their mind all the time. They're very perceptive and know when an adult doesn't believe in them. And because they're young, they then take that very personally. And I've had to have conversations with, I remember one of my favorite alums that I was literally messaging the other day because he was in Paris, and I was like, look at you. Like, this is amazing that you're in Paris. Congrats, whatever. And he messaged me back, and we were talking back and forth. And he, there was one moment in an advising appointment that his perception of what I said was that he thought that I didn't believe in him being able to pass a class. Well, he made it his mission to not only pass that class because he thought that I didn't believe in him, but he also made it his mission to it's something that lit a fire in him. And thankfully, I caught it very quickly where I was like, hey, I want you to know that that's not what I meant. I've 100% believed in you. And he's like, well, I really thought that you didn't. And so I almost wanted to show you, prove you wrong. And I was like, gosh, the impacts of words and the impact that an adult can have is really, really important. And in both ways, both positively and negatively. So I think that's the number one thing is aligning on mindsets so that so that students know that the adults that they see day in and day out believe in them, and then therefore will hopefully provide the support, the resources, and then everything will kind of line up after that.
We've established that the foundation of the success of this College Initiatives program is the relationships that have been built with the students, with the parents. But what about the relationships with colleges? You have an impact program, right? What is that?
We do. Yes. So our Impact College Partnership Program, we started it, I guess, about 15 years ago. And it was out of this need to ensure that we partnered with the institutions that the kids were no longer with us, right? As much as we built the relationships with them and the families and all this stuff, they physically were no longer in front of us. And so it was our way to ensure that we were still being able to support our students and partner with, the institutions, again, that theoretically should be supporting them. Now, I say theoretically because every college is different. And I think that was a way for us to also push colleges to say, hey, now that we turn them to you, we need you to support them and make sure that they graduate, make sure that they have what they need. And so two of the things that we request our impact partners to provide is one, financial aid. Now, all colleges theoretically provide financial aid, but specifically for our college partners, we request that they meet the full need of the students that they admit to their partnership or to their institution, because financial aid is ultimately the biggest barrier that our kids face in deciding where they're going to go to college. And then the second is that support once they're there. We ask that they assign somebody at their college to be our point of contact and their point of contact. If they provide a bridge program or a summer program, that they invite our students to it. That if they have any sort of mentorship program, that they invite our students to it. So we try not to reinvent the wheel, that if they have something, please just ensure that our students are part of that. And if you don't have something, please, start something to ensure that our students are successful while they're there. And so we've seen a really, really great success with our program. The last statistics that we looked at, about 80% of our students who enrolled at a impact college graduated from an impact college, which is huge wins. So we are definitely really proud of our partnership program and continuing to look for it to grow, since again, we're now just crossed the 10,000 mark of alumni, and we're only growing from here. I mean, every class from here on is about 2,000 students. So we're just growing exponentially the amount of alumni that we have. Wow.
How many colleges are part of that impact program approximately?
Currently, we have 24 colleges across the country. They range from like your, highly selective Northeast colleges like Boston University or Bates College. We have some that are maybe a little bit less selective, but at the end of the day, they're selective or highly selective colleges. Some in California, Midwest, Northeast, and a few here in Texas.
That's wonderful. I just got an email from my daughter's college saying, if your child needs support, here are these resources. Make sure you share it with them. So obviously they share it with the students. The students read emails, maybe or not, right?
Debatable.
So I guess they're same objective that you have. Like we have to make it full circle. We have to have this full communication. So telling the parents. So whether it was financial aid links, it was links for mental wellness. It was links for academic support. So I was like, oh, I'm sure she's fine. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to send them to her because I want her to see that, so I did. I said, hey, I just got an email with some great resources. So I sent them. Yeah.
Because chances are, the kids don't read emails if they're longer than 2 lines, or that if they're not bulleted. And then 2, I think that's a struggle that will always be the case for colleges is getting students to take advantage of the resources that they offer. You know, the amount of conversations I've had with alumni that are about to go into senior year or are in their senior year, and they're starting to freak out. What am I going to do next? Well, have you been to your career services office?
Right.
No.
Right.
That's step number one.
Yeah.
Go and do that, you know, and that's just so important. But there's this barrier, you know, and I'll be honest, I didn't step foot in my career services office until my senior year. And even then I felt like it was too late. And so, yeah, there's something that colleges need to figure out, and how to break that barrier, I think, for our students.
Yeah, make that part of the, just like you do with your seminar, right? You make it part of their course load. That should be part of any program at the college too. So it's not this isolated office tucked in a corner that maybe the kids know about, maybe they get to or not, but instead it's pushed into
Correct.
their programs.
Yeah, and especially for our students, because I mean, college is already intimidating as it is, and if they have this imposter syndrome going for however long they're there, you know, it's the career services office also feels very inaccessible, because I mean, I remember thinking, do I need to go dressed up? Like, it's like, what do I do in this? Like, am I going to get an interview right away? Or, you know, there was so many fears of whether I was able to be there or not, that I think there's a lot of, in making it accessible for our students, that needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you've well established that it's the relationships that are built that really makes the difference, for having, you know, students being able to overcome any fears, to be persistent, and, you know, eventually be successful. So this is a fantastic program. I'm excited for us to share this, because I hope that other schools really take initiatives like this to push it even further, to make sure that we're not just, you know, there's college and career readiness standards that we all do, but this really closes the loops and makes the big difference. So I think it's something that all schools should be doing.
Thank you.
It's fabulous.
Thank you.
And Bobby, where can they find Yes Prep online?
Yeah, you can definitely find Yes Prep on our website, right? yesprep.org, and you can learn more about our college counseling department, our college initiatives department, through the website. Those parent guides, communication guides are there and accessible, you know, for anybody to use. We're really proud of those, and really ensuring that. And by the way, they're not only for parents, for our students that are with us, but also for our alumni, because our families who have kids after they graduate still need some support.
Right.
So that's available there. We're definitely pretty present on Instagram as well for Yes Prep Public Schools. So we invite folks to follow our content there as well.
I'll do that. I will do that.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing to really ensure success for our students. That's great work.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me, and for the thoughtful questions. As you can tell, or hopefully you can tell, I'm really passionate about
Yes.
this work, and it's very personal to me, because our students and our families deserve the best.
Absolutely.
And so hopefully that's what they get from us.
It sounds like they do. Yes. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube.